How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another tutorial video, and today I am super excited for this one because I'm going to teach you a method that I've been keeping in the bank for about 4 years. This is a hyper-visual moving ink plot that happens in slow motion. You take a playing card and a Sharpie, you draw whatever you like on the card. I use a spot of ink, but you can use a cross or anything that you like. And that shape moves across the card in slow motion. It is an absolute visual feast for the eyes. Works great on social media, also works in person. I'm also going to teach you a bunch of other variations, like where the spot moves instantly across the card, or where you take it off and flick it back onto the card straight away, and even a variation where the spot of ink moves to your arm. There's a lot of tricks in this video. Stick around, I'm going to teach you them all. This is the moving ink tutorial. Alright, so we're going to kick this tutorial off with the construction of the gimmick. How are you going to make the card you're going to need for this trick? Obviously, you're going to need a Sharpie and a playing card. Bicycle cards work really well for this. I'll explain why in just a second. And you're also going to want a scalpel or a cutting knife and a cutting pad. Be super careful when you use these, of course, and I cannot take responsibility for you hurting yourself making this. So do this at your own risk and all that jazz. Now, if I zoom in, I can show you why bicycle cards are perfect for this. Because they have a straight line that goes from this angel to this angel, or mermaid, or whatever they are, and that straight section, we're going to cut that section. And we're also going to cut some other parts of the card to make this work perfectly. So the first thing we're going to do is cut along that straight line. You can use a ruler if you want to, although personally I don't think you need one. Now once you've done that, you'll have a little slit in the card. You're not quite done because you're going to cut around this little angel. From the tip then of the straight line, you're going to go around the angel, keeping as close to those curls as you can, and you're going to do it at both ends. If I show you up close what you're now left with, you have a slit along those straight lines that also goes around the curves of the card. You can see I've gone around the little sort of dial up here, gone around that just a little bit, around the bottom of the mermaid. I've done that on both ends so that I have a slit basically from one end of the card to another. And here is where the second part of the construction comes in, a super important part of making this gimmick, which is a clear playing card. This is actually a card from the Phantom deck by Joshua J, if you're interested in the exact plastic and all that sort of stuff I'm using. But any bit of clear plastic that is relatively sturdy but not too thick, and obviously completely transparent. You don't want any colour on this whatsoever. And what you're going to do is cut a strip of this. Now on my cutting pad, I'm going to do sort of about 1 centimetre, like so. And once you have that, you can break it off so that you're just going to use this little bit of plastic. The big bit of plastic you can save for future gimmicks if you want to. You're only going to use this little strip of plastic, which I call the paddle. I call this the paddle, and the paddle goes into the slit just like so. And you're going to want to line up the edge of the plastic with the border of the card. Not the edge of the card, the border of the actual design. And then the rest of the excess at this end you can cut off. Now you're going to draw the spot of ink or the cross or whatever shape you are going to use. You're going to draw it on the piece of plastic. You're almost there. The last thing you need to do is just take some scissors and cut around the spot of ink, which is why I really like using a spot, because as you can see, if I glint it in the light, the edges now taper and go over that spot of ink, hugging as close to the edge of the shape as possible. This, of course, goes inside the slit, and you have completed the gimmick. But now, it's the hard part. Once you have the gimmick constructed, once everything has dried out, it is super tempting to want to go out there and perform this straight away, and I do not blame you. But the most important rule of performing this trick, the thing that is going to separate good performances from bad performances, is this. Do not move your fingers and the ink at the same time. If you do that, it just makes me cringe, because you're telling your audience exactly what's happening. You're telling your audience that your fingers and the ink are in some way connected. And to them, that should not be a connection that they think of at all. That should just not occur to them. So do not do that. If you know that, then instantly your performance has got better. The first way that you can perform this, and probably the easiest way, is like so. And all I'm doing here is moving my thumb. My fingers are at the front of the card, I'm pinching with my thumb onto the paddle, and that little bit of blue ink, by the way, is just so that you can see the transparent plastic a little bit clearer. That's just for explanation purposes. But my thumb is on the plastic, and it moves up if I want the ink to go up, and it moves down if I want the ink to go down. I recommend only really doing one movement, probably max, plus a vanish or a teleportation, but don't go up and down, because in a way, yeah, that's kind of too much, it's too obvious. The second way of performing this is, instead of my fingers being at the audience-friendly side, my fingers are going to be at the non-audience-friendly side. And this is really good if you want to perform it down here, with your audience looking onto it, because your fingers are underneath and the spot of ink obviously is on top. But it's also really good if you have a spectator in front of you. You can almost turn your back to the spectator as if you're watching the trick with them and have the card vertical like so. So a nice little bit of audience management. It's always really good to think about your performance angles and stuff. Not just the trick, not just what's going on over here, it's all about the environment. So you can have the card like so, and you can have this effect happen, which I think is really, really nice. To replicate this, I have the paddle at an angle, starting angled down, like so, and this end of the paddle is going to be a pivot point. You're going to rotate the paddle rather than slide it. So you'll notice that my index finger curls as my middle finger extends, and vice versa. And what this does is it creates almost like clock hands, which means that the spot of ink can rise without your thumb or fingers moving at all up or down the card. It's a really, really nice version. So that is something that you can play around with. Obviously, this gimmick is so simple to use that you might discover your own ways that you want to perform this. And if you do, that is absolutely great. A couple of little pointers, and this might seem obvious, but I've been performing the trick for years, and very occasionally I get this wrong, where the ink will go off the card slightly. You need to be aware not to push your thumb too far in this direction, because otherwise you've exposed the gimmick. It's just right there for everyone to see, so make sure you're staying within the boundaries of the card. Again, that's fairly self-explanatory, and the same applies to the other way. Don't accidentally make half of the ink disappear or anything like that. Although, that does lead me on to the next effect, which is making the ink disappear and throwing it back onto the card, which is a really nice effect. And this is, again, really, really simple. All I'm doing is I'm timing my grab with me pulling my thumb back so that the ink disappears, and then as I flick in slow motion, I'm simply going back out of the slit. So without the cover of the hand, I grab, and as I do that, and then as I throw, I simply put it back. And that is where it's slightly risky to overshoot and do that, so again, just be careful. This same principle can also be used for the ink to arm effect, which is really, really fun. It's a variation I like because it takes the heat off the card. You can move the spot to somewhere where it truly is examinable. My arm, for instance. So I start with the ink covering the spot like so, or I can rotate my arm like this so that the spot is simply facing away from the audience. I show the ink, and I simply combine turning my arm. All I'm doing there, it's not a move, I'm just turning my arm as the ink retracts to the back of the card through the slit. So once again, it's just about timing. You show the ink, you show your arm apparently with nothing, and in slow motion, this happens. But in fast motion, this happens. It's really cool. With this variation, there is a really nice way to have the card end clean once the spot has disappeared. All I do is I have an ungimmicked normal playing card in my back pocket at the side that I'm going to hold the card on, so I just have that card prepared in my back pocket. And then once I've done the moving ink plot, this card drops to my side as everyone is looking at the spot of ink, and then I come out with the ungimmicked playing card, so that if they ask, I can hand this out and they can see that this was just a normal card, because I've switched it. But if they don't ask, I'm not necessarily going to bring it up. I might just leave the card out for them to discover that if they want to, which is quite a nice thing, and not forcing it on them, not like, hey, examine this, because that's a little bit weird. I might just leave it to one side and move on with whatever performance I was going to do, and then if they want to, they can look at it. If you want to learn even more about this trick in particular, I'm going to be sharing more secrets about it over on the Magician Club, which is my membership for magicians that is just $5 a month, and for that you get access to a huge video library teaching my most powerful magic. It's literally $5, and the magic there is worth hundreds of dollars, but you can sign up today, link in the description if you want to learn more about that. I'm going to be sharing some stories and some extra little things about this trick over on there, as well as all of the other stuff. Alright, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this one, please do me a favor and click the thumbs up button down below on your way out. That is massively appreciated. And if you really want to help the channel out, and you're new around here and you made it to this point of the video, please do subscribe down below, join the channel. I teach a load of magic, talk about it, anything to do with magic. So if you like magic or you're a magician, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. We're on the road to 20K, and yeah, I think that's everything, so I will see you in the next video.